Victoria Schneps is the founder and co-publisher of Schneps Media, the largest local media company serving New York City, Long Island, Westchester, and beyond, with more than 100 outlets reaching millions of people. But it all started in her Bayside living room with $250, one newspaper, and a belief in the power of media. Long before Schneps Media, Victoria was advocating for her daughter, who was born with severe brain damage, advocacy that helped spark landmark change in the lives of people with disabilities. So we're talking about power. We're talking about visibility, motherhood, and what happens when a woman refuses to stay quiet, because this is Mom Curious. I'm your host, Daniella Rabbani. Welcome, Victoria Schneps. This is the Mom Curious podcast, where we say the quiet part out loud about womanhood, motherhood, and everything in between.
And I still have a couple of the vials.
Shut up!
No, you shut up. I kept them. So
You're just hoarding sperm?
No,
That was a joke. That was a joke.
That was a joke. 30, like my mid-30s, when like my body started changing and stuff after shitting out 3 kids.
Stop taking advice from people on the internet, like myself included.
And I didn't realize how heavy that would be, and that loving my children would not be enough to make me not a basket case.
And that gave me the freedom to do something for myself.
And it's an adventure that is not just all doom and gloom.
You know better, and if you didn't now, you know better.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you. But I have to tell you that in addition to starting in my living room, I had 4 children.
My goodness.
And that was really why I was a teacher by profession. My master's degree is in education, and I thought I'd be a teacher for my whole life because I love teaching. And my 4 children did not allow me to go anywhere where I had to punch a clock. So I said, I better be in my own business, and I'd love to be in the news business.
It's real that once you become a parent, particularly a mother, we need to have a little more flexibility and
a lot
ownership of our time. I know. And you know, they say that when a child is born, a mother is born. And that was certainly the case for you with Lara, because she ended up being your greatest teacher. And I was hoping we could talk about that journey for you.
Well, sometimes there's an expression that man plans and God acts.
God
And
laughs, yeah.
I had a great plan. I was married to a lawyer, a very smart man, and I was an educator, and I thought I would have a nice house with a little white picket fence in the suburbs and have a very sweet life. And then Lara was born. She turned blue in the nursery. They didn't catch it fast enough. And it turned out it was really lack of oxygen caused the brain damage. But she put me on a whole other journey, and I think she made me a better person.
Yes.
Because of Lara. We had to go for what they say call to action. Once we knew that she was having seizures, we had to find a cure. And you go to every hospital. Luckily, we live in New York. And after a year's journey of hospitals and injections and visiting nurses and all kinds of treatments, the pediatric neurologist sat us down one Saturday afternoon. I remember it like it was yesterday. And he said, you've got to come to the acceptance that Lara will always be a 3-month-old.
Wow.
And
was that
her
true?
Development will be, yes. She could not, she needed to be fed. She needed to be diapered. She needed to be held. She couldn't sit up like a 3-month-old. She
Right.
grew physically, but her ability to do things that would be in the range of a normal child was not there. And so then we began a journey to find help.
Mm.
And we looked all over the country. In fact, we even looked at a place in Denmark. And, somebody called me and said, there's a new infant rehabilitation center at Willowbrook State School on Staten Island. Why don't you take a look at it? And it had just been built. It was a state-of-the-art facility on Staten Island that allowed for physical therapy and occupational therapy, which wasn't available. Lara was born in 1968. So in the early 70s, there was no such thing as day programs and things that you could be going to. So we did bring it to Willowbrook with the hope of the rehabilitation might help. Because I never gave up hope that we could be able to see her grow mentally And I lived in a building in Bayside where a lot of the women were college graduates, but they were mothers. And so they weren't working. And they came to me and they said, look, let's start a women's organization and volunteer and raise money at Willowbrook. So
That's that
started
$80
out.
million organization.
I built it on the same sofa as my newspapers.
Wow.
And so we started right on my living room sofa with a group of wonderful women who had healthy children.
Wow.
And they said to me, Vicki, ever for the grace of God go on, one of my friends. She says, what can I do to help? Let's volunteer at Willowbrook. Let's raise some money. And so they really allowed me to create this organization with their help. And we did. I visited Lara every week, and they would go and volunteer. But within about a year of Lara being at Willowbrook, Governor Rockefeller slashed the budget. It was state funded.
Right.
And my lovely ladies and I became marchers and picketers, demanding for the return of the funds.
Wow.
And at the same time, one of the doctors at Willowbrook knew Geraldo Rivera. And so they snuck Geraldo into Willowbrook because I must tell you that when I was marching and picketing, I was like knocking on air. Nobody listened. But when Geraldo came with his passion, his coverage, I'll still remember his words. He said, I could show you the pictures of the children in the wards. I could let you hear the moaning sounds of the people on the ward. But how do I describe the smell?
Because it was such terrible conditions. I'm so sorry to hear.
So that catapulted the Parents Association to sign on to we filed a federal class action lawsuit to close the place down.
Good for
and
you.
we, in fact, were successful.
Mm-hmm.
Willowbrook is now the College of Staten Island.
Oh.
And all the group homes that exist in the communities came out of our consent decree, out of our lawsuit. And the funding from the state, instead of funding institutions like Willowbrook, they were forced by the mandate of the courts to fund group homes.
Incredible.
So we changed our charter. We were the Women's Organization for Retarded Children, WORC, and we changed our charter. And we ultimately today it's called Life's Work. And we, instead of just a fundraising organization, we changed our charter to be a provider. And we opened, Geraldo stayed involved. To this day, he's involved. He raises lots of money for us and stays passionately involved. And at the time, he did a concert with John Lennon and Yoko Ono in Madison Square Garden. And we got, $75,000 from the proceeds from that concert. And we used it to buy a house in Little Neck, Queens.
Right by where I grew up, actually. I grew up in Great Neck.
There you are, next door.
It's actually a really nice part of town, so I'm so glad for those children to have grown up there.
The people on the block didn't think so.
Oh, yes, I know this story. Oh,
they sued us. Not only did they sue us, but I had Schneps license plates. I got death threats.
Wow. Terrible.
And I had to take my
Shame on
license
them.
plates off the car.
Shame on them. Wow.
Well, people fear the unknown. And as much as I would go around and have coffee clutches and tell people, these are children just with special needs. They're children with Down syndrome, children with autism, children, who have special needs. They are the most harmless, loving people you could want to meet.
Was that the case with Lara?
And,
she was
Lara
loving?
Was, I could hug and kiss Lara as much as I want. She never resisted.
Sweet girl.
So we won the lawsuit. The neighbors sued us. We won the lawsuit, and it made the law that all group homes could be in R1 and 2 residential zones. So we opened that home and we named it the Geraldo Rivera Group Home.
Wow. And this is an incredible testament to not just the power of women, local women, supporting each other, supporting children, supporting community, but also the power of the press. If it weren't for him and that heartbreaking quote about how awful the sights, sounds, and smells were in, Lara's group home, we really would still be in that situation with children suffering needlessly.
Well, it's really was a life-changing time forever for me and for my husband. And, for us, we took Lara out and began looking for some other ways to help. And that's when the idea of coming up with a group home. But as it turned out, the group home, the bedrooms were upstairs, and Lara was never ambulatory. She had to get around in a wheelchair to be pushed. She had no ability to mobility. But we ended up opening an apartment group home in a building that was totally accessible. And the journey of the power of the press stayed in my head, that I saw without Geraldo, our story would never have progressed the way it did. And so I said, someday I'd love to be in the news business. But then I had 3 more children, and life goes on. And the dream was there, and I did my volunteer work, which I do to this day. We changed the name to Life's Work. And the idea of having this opportunity to get into the news business and have an impact, because the power of the press is what catapulted our story and convinced the Parents Association to sign on for the class action lawsuit.
That's right.
So I never forgot that. And when my Josh, who was my baby, he's my 4th child, went off to kindergarten, I had met a man who had taken a buyout from the Daily News, and he started a newspaper in Astoria, which is a community all the way in the western north of Queens. And I lived in Bayside, the eastern part of Queens. And in 1985, there were changes in the laws that people could turn their rental buildings into co-ops. It was called the Co-op Conversion Law. And I lived in Bayside, and in Bay Terrace, it was block after block of apartment buildings, and they all became co-ops.
Wow.
And I understood that if you own your apartment or you own your home, you are caring about the neighborhood.
Right.
You're invested, probably the biggest investment of your life, in your property.
Right.
And so I said, John, I met him and I said, John, I think we could start a newspaper down here in Bayside. And he said, well, you think you can sell a few ads? So I said, well, I'm going to ask my hairdresser. She advertised with me for 50 years. I'm going to ask my jeweler. She advertised with me for 50 years. I asked the broker that sold me my house, and they advertised. And then I asked my brother and my mother and my father, and we got started.
You got started, and now it's 100 media outlets later. My husband actually interned at Dan's Papers. He was very excited that I meet you. I know so many people who have been on the covers of the family magazines, either in Brooklyn, Long Island, or Manhattan. I mean, it's amazing to hear that it started one step at a time with 4 children in tow.
But I think that's the key for being able to start a business. And you grow slowly. I mean, I'm in business now 40 years. I'm not an overnight success.
Right. I love to hear that, actually.
It built year by year. And I was very blessed that I had 12 newspapers. And one night I got a call from my son. He had decided to become an investment banker. And he got a job with Bank of America. And I get a call from him one night. I still remember that phone call. And he said, Mom, if I'm going to work 24/7, which they make them do, in investment banking.
Oh, I know.
Could I come work for you?
Wow.
So it's a mother's dream, what could be better than having your own child in your, business? And so, of course, I said I'd be thrilled to. Between you and I took a pay cut. Because he was making so much money in investment banking, I had to make sure I had enough money to make him be
a deal he couldn't refuse.
A deal he couldn't refuse, and so we started him coming into the company. Fortunately, I had an office in Bayside, and I had another office in Howard Beach. And if you know Queens County, it's the different parts of the world.
Yeah, Queens is actually quite large.
Right. Well, 2.5 million people. And so, of course, he worked down in Howard Beach with my publisher of my Howard Beach papers and kind of learned the ropes doing sales, doing distribution, doing all the things that we do. He learned everything.
It's
And he
amazing.
was to this day, he was such a hard worker and devoted to which I am, our passion for local journalism. And so he joined the company, and under his tutelage, really, I started every paper. I owned 12 at the time. I started them from scratch. I didn't
Incredible.
invest any money. I just started it. And, what I did was when Josh joined the company, we got a call from a broker in Brooklyn that a group of Brooklyn papers were available. And I was born in Brooklyn and grew up in Brooklyn. And I know Brooklyn very well. I knew the neighborhood. It was Bay Ridge. I had always wanted to live in Bay Ridge. It's a beautiful neighborhood right on the Verrazano Bridge, Shore Road neighborhood. And so we negotiated and we bought the business, and then we ended up buying a building in Bay Ridge for the newspaper. And, we began our acquisitions.
It's incredible. I know we only have 5 minutes together. You're a busy lady. You're still working. You're incredible. 40 years later, you're still so passionate about local news. But I really wanted to rewind the clock as far back as you can remember, if you wouldn't mind just walking us through how it's possible for a woman of your time to have, really had real challenges as a young mother then of 4, to build such an empire. I wonder what your childhood was like and what what those values were growing up that really created this unstoppable force that is Victoria Schneps.
Well, thank you. I really have to credit my mother and my father. My mother was a leader. She was the president of the Girl Scouts. She was the president of the PTA. She was the president of the Brownies. Wherever there was an organization, she was the leader. And my father was in his own business for 50 years. And I still remember how he would keep his records on a little business card, checking in on the sales of the day and the weather. And being very, structured in his business, and a very loving father. But he worked 6 days, and on the 7th day, like God, he rested. But, there was so much love and care in our home, and I think great role models. My father's first cousin won the Nobel Prize for Medicine.
Oh, wow.
Arthur Kornberg, and then his son went on to win Roger Kornberg the Nobel Prize for Medicine. So there was a great feeling in our home of love and connectedness. And my parents were always, I believe, my safety net. That I could do anything. I could fly as high as I wanted because they were always there if I ever needed them. And I think that's a big benefit in life, to have a family that is always there for you and supportive of you. And, when my Lara was at Willowbrook, my mother and my aunt came every single week. They would visit.
Really?
And my mother created a little business to raise money to bring to the people at Willowbrook.
Wow.
So, I think it was in my DNA.
That loving quality, that unstoppable quality. It's beautiful. And you were really so brave to have 3 more children after Lara.
I'm a cockeyed optimist.
Is that what that is?
I felt it was just a fluke of nature that she had turned blue and that they didn't catch it fast enough. I didn't believe it was anything else. So my husband wanted 6 children. So he
Did he
was
really?
a big motivator, to have more children. And, he did make me feel like a queen when I was pregnant. He said, you were the most beautiful, when you were pregnant. So how could you not want to have more children?
My husband was the same. He was so into me when I was pregnant, and I was like, I'm like, my legs are all swollen. He's like, oh God, it's just, you're so beautiful. You're like bringing life into the world. I'm in awe. That's a good man. I'm glad you experienced that. I'm really glad.
Yes, I've been very blessed.
I've done a lot of research on your story. I I experience your optimism all the time because I walk the streets of New York and I see AM New York. I see your publications all the time in the Hamptons as well. And I'm
I'm in Palm Beach now.
in Palm
We
Beach.
expanded to Palm Beach, Dan's Papers, Palm Beach, because we
Oh.
realized our readers were down here.
Oh my God, how
So I
fun.
just had to force myself to go down to Palm Beach and put out Dan's Papers, Palm Beach.
I love that so much. You had to. You just had to.
Right. And
So
then
it's
we
so
have the
nice.
Dan's Papers, New York City. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I did not.
We're mailing it to 10,000 families who own homes in the Hamptons but live in Manhattan.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
So we have Dan's New York City, Dan's Papers Hamptons, and Dan's Papers Palm Beach.
I'll have to tell my husband. He's going to be very excited about that.
Yes.
He was an intern at Dan's Papers. But it's very special to get to know you. And I did promise to let you go on time. But with that, I was wondering, you mentioned that your daughter, Lara, she passed away when she was 17.
Yes.
And I wonder, what would she think of the legacy that she left behind through you?
Well, I feel honestly that it's never done.
Mothering her.
That legacies are never done. I'm a big believer that you always have to be looking forward and growing, because even that legacy is in danger with funding for group homes. So the battle and the war, we called it the Willowbrook Wars. And the battles and the wars continue fighting for children who are special. We have such an explosion of children with autism.
Yes.
And such great needs for the families of those children and adults who, they grow up into adults with special needs. So I feel that the journey is never ending.
Mm-hmm.
It is never done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud of my daughter Samantha joined the board. I'm a founding member of the board of directors of Life's Work, but my daughter just joined the board and she did her first fundraising event. To me, there's the legacy for Lara, that her sister did this fundraiser, and my children, Elizabeth and Josh, both supported and went to the fundraiser, and bringing their families in and their friends into the fold of understanding the needs of special children. And so I think for me, what a greater thing is than having my other children engaged and to be helping them forward the needs of what Lara needed and what children still need today. The journey is ongoing.
You are a breath of fresh air. If I didn't promise you to let you go to your next meeting, I could sit with you forever and really just learn from your brilliance and your cockeyed optimism. Thank you so much for taking the time, Victoria Schneps. I look forward to following you. And if you could let our listeners know where we can listen to your podcast and your publications, I would be so grateful.
Well, podcasts live everywhere on YouTube and Spotify. It's The Power Women with Victoria Schneps, and then I do an A-lister for the men.
Love
so
that.
The women get a Power Women podcast and the men get an A-lister podcast. And my son does a Schneps Connects podcast.
Amazing.
And Dan Rettina, who founded Dan's Papers, does a Dan's podcast. And my Gay City News editors do a Gay City News podcast. So ShnepsMedia.com is the name of the company and our website where everything can be found. ShnepsMedia.com is our website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a great meeting
Thank
and a
you.
beautiful day in Palm Beach.
Thank you for your support. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Continue your great work. Bye.
Thank you.